Hello students, I am Halika Valatofat Uktamuna, responsible to deliver lesson 13. The theme of this lesson is travel, fantastic film trips, grammar past simple and past continuous. This lesson is devoted for the first course students of technical faculties. So let's move on the next slide, which is about content of our lesson. First, we listen to the texts Kon-Tiki, Into the Wild, Repeat Proof Tense, and watch video about traveling. Then we learn transportation vocabulary and try to read and pronounce correctly. At the end, we work with grammar, past simple and past continuous, and do some exercises. Let's fresh up our minds by answering the questions. Look at the photos and try to answer the questions. What kinds of transport can you name? Which way of traveling do you prefer and why? Dear students, it is time to listen to the texts. There are 3 very interesting texts according to our topic. First is Kon-Tiki. In the middle of the 20th century, the Norwegian explorer and writer Thor Heyerdahl developed a theory. He believed that the people from South America traveled to Polynesia 1,500 years ago and settled there. At the time, very few others believed the theory. They thought the journey was too difficult without modern technology. While others were discussing the theory, Heyerdahl decided to test it. Using only materials and technology available to the people of that time, Heyerdahl and his team of 5 sailors and a parrot built a wooden raft. On 28th of April in 1947, they left from Peru and crossed the Pacific. While they were sailing, huge waves crashed into the raft, and whales and sharks came close. 101 days and 4,300 miles later, they arrived in Polynesia. At the time, no one knew this type of journey was possible. But perhaps the most amazing thing about the journey was that Thor Heyerdahl didn't know how to swim. Heyerdahl later wrote a book about the journey, and in 2012 a Norwegian film called Kon-Tiki came out based on the trip. Our next text is about Into the Wild. When Chris McCandless graduated from Emory University, USA, he knew he wanted more from life than a normal career. He gave away his savings, $24,000, to charity, abandoned his car, burned the money in his wallet, and gave himself a new name, Alexander Supertramp. He rejected the modern world and decided to experience life alone and in the wild. With hardly any equipment of technology, McCandless went into the Alaskan wilderness. While he was traveling, he met several people who helped him, giving him rides and food. One man even offered to adopt him as a grandson, but McCandless decided to keep going into the wild. Eventually, he ended up in an abandoned bus hunting and picking plants for food while he was living wild. He wrote a diary. It described his day-to-day life and the difficulties and pleasures he had from living in nature. McCandless stayed in the bath for 4 months, and then his diary stopped. Eventually his body was found by a hunter. Following a book describing his life, a film came out based on his adventures. Our third text is about rabbit-proof fence. It is Australia in 1931. 3 Aboriginal girls, Molly, 14, her sister Daisy, 8, and their cousin Gracie, 10, were taken from their home by government officials because of their race. They were sent to live in a camp far from home. Life at the camp was terrible and they hated it. One night when it was raining, the girls decided to escape. They knew that the rain would hide their footprints in the mud, so they began the long journey home. In the desert they had no food and nowhere to sleep. They didn't have a map either, but while they were walking they saw the rabbit-proof fence, on the longest fences in the world. It was there to stop rabbits from entering farmland. The girls recognized the fence and walked to it for 1,200 miles. After 9 weeks, they got home. Many years later, Molly's daughter, Doris Pilkington Garimara, wrote a book about the journey, and in 2002, the story was made into a film, A Rabbit-Proof Fence. My dear students, you liked these stories very much. Now you should read the texts again and try to answer these questions. What types of transport do you think appear in the films above? Where do you think the people are going? Who made the journey? Why did they want to go? Where did they go? Which parts of the journeys sound enjoyable, terrible, frightening? Why do you think the stories were made into films? Can you think of any other journeys that have been made into films? It is time to watch the video. I think with the help of this video you will learn new words.
You and me, we're going on a journey. My name's Becky from Keep It Simple English, and today I'm going to talk to you about travel and transport. My friend Sarah invited me to visit her. She lives in another city and she wanted to know how I would be travelling, what type of transport I'd be using. If you've already seen my video on the 4 ways to talk about the future in English, you will know how she can ask me. If you didn't, the link is just above here. Of course, because this is a one-off, a single event, we can't use the simple present. The simple present is only used for things that happen regularly or on a timetable. However, there are still 3 ways she could ask about my travel plans. She could use the present continuous by saying, how are you getting here? She could use going to. How are you going to get here? Or she could use will. How will you get here? So how will I get there? Get your coat. You and I, we're going on a trip. On a canoe. On foot. Swimming. On the tube. With a suitcase. In a car. In the rain. In the snow. On a sunny day. Much better. By boat. On foot. By road. By taxi. On the bus. On an open-topped bus. Double-decker bus.
Strong current, but would be invaders at its mercy.
On the tourist bus. By subway. By foot. By coach.
No gunpowder.
Along the coast.
Still on the
On the train. Standing up. First class. Late. On a catamaran. On foot. By bike. By car. On a lifeboat. In a camper van. By a hovercraft. In a rowing boat. Wet. By coach. On an aeroplane. In a police car. By car. In a camper van. On a boat. Alone.
Olympic Games.
The scenic route. By the beach. Over a bridge. On a yacht. In the dark. By train. By road, rail, and sea. So as you can see, we often use the word.
Dear students, I think you have learned the meaning of the words. Now, here are the lists of vocabulary. You should read and pronounce them correctly and learn the meaning of these words. Map, money belt, walking boots, notebook, backpack, souvenir, suitcase, sun hat, umbrella, binoculars, waterproof, digital camera, travel guide, tower guide, boat trip, natural wonder, coach tower. Now, dear student, it is time to work with grammar. Now you will watch the grammar illustration according to our topic, past simple and past continuous.
Welcome to English Grammar Support. This lesson is about the past simple and the past continuous. Look at these sentences. I watched the telly last night. I was watching the telly last night. The first sentence is in the past simple. The second sentence is in the past continuous. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to form a past simple and how to form a past continuous, and when to use a past simple and when to use a past continuous, and more important, the difference between the two. First, we're going to have a look at how to form both tenses. As you might know, in the English language, we have regular and irregular verbs. And this is important to remember when forming a past simple. To make a past simple, for the regular verbs, we use the base form of the verb and we add ed. For example, he worked late last night. The irregular verbs have their own unique past tense, so you need to study those carefully. I bought a new t-shirt yesterday. The infinitive form of the verb bought is to buy. For past continuous, we do not need to care about regular and irregular verbs, because all past continuous, whether they are irregular or regular verbs, are formed by using was or were, the past tense of the verb to be, the base form of the verb, and ing. For example, he was working last night. Or, I was buying a t-shirt when I saw her yesterday. Now let's have a look at how to use a past simple and how to use a past continuous and how to keep them apart. We use a past simple for activities that were finished in the past. We usually use a time frame. He worked late last night. Here, last night is what we consider a time frame. Or, I bought a new t-shirt yesterday. Here, yesterday is a time frame. A past continuous is used for activities started and finished in the past, but we want to emphasize duration. So we want to show the other person, the other listener or reader, that it lasted for quite some time. For example, he was working all night, so we want to emphasize that it lasted the entire night. We also use a past continuous for an ongoing action in the past, interrupted by a sudden event. For example, I was buying a t-shirt when I ran into her. So I was doing something and then suddenly a friend came up to me. That's when I ran into her. Please note that for the interruption we use a past simple. So we often find a past continuous and a past simple in the same sentence, where the past continuous shows us that it was a continuing activity and the past simple shows us the interruption of that activity. Thank you for listening.
Now let's move on to the next slide, which is about grammar topic, past simple and past continuous. You should read this construction. To advance our grammar, let's practice some classroom basic exercise. Exercise 1. Look at sentences A to C and answer the questions. Then make sentences with the prompts. One example is given. I ran, start to snow, so I was running when it started to snow, so I went home. Last, not least, we come to the end of our lesson. I want you to have some tasks as homework. Exercise 1. Find 14 types of transport in the word snake. Then complete the word web with the types of transport in exercise 1A. Then, what types of transport are the people talking about? One example is given. I always call one to get home at night. It is taxi. You should continue the exercise. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye. See you next lesson.